Chapter 1. She had dated charismatic and well-known politicians, charming and successful CEOs, and distinguished members of academia, all rich and powerful. She could not name one of them who had not asked her to marry him. Had it been years earlier, in her college days, when she lived with her parents, her mother would have inundated her with unsolicited comments. "He's a catch," she'd say, or "he'll be a great husband," or "you two are made for each other. You're not going to let this one go, Joan. You'll marry him, won't you?" But that was in the distant past. She had lived in a different world. As for the present, well, the carousel of lovers continued its pointless journey, with man after man riding beside her for a time, and then realizing the fact that she had no destination in mind. "I'm just not the marrying type," was what she told the last one, after he'd proposed for the second time. "I want to be free. We have a wonderful relationship, and I can't name a single man I'd rather be with. But I'm not going to marry you." Those words had served as her exit line for some years. They were effective upon hearing them. Each new suitor would withdraw further and further away from her before giving her their last kiss. The kiss of death to an otherwise perpetual love affair. And through it all, she simply watched them go, no word of why she pushed them off escaping her lips. Much as she yearned to air her closest cares, she could not bring herself to share these with anyone. Joan Pierre looked at her watch, then turned to her personal assistant, a preppy young man in his late 20s. "What time is my meeting?" she asked. "Have you informed everyone on the list?" "Yes, ma'am. I've told everyone. So has your secretary. Everyone will be there to meet us at noon. Bill's going to take us back as soon as we're done here." "Good. It's important. Very important. With so many companies under our umbrella, we have to keep our shareholders happy. People have invested their whole retirement funds in us, and that's not mentioning the internal pension we have to keep health." Trying to stem the tide of petulant nerves, unusual for his employer at this hour, John interrupted her with, "I understand. We all know you're going to lead us in the right direction. This is just another doctor's visit. You're not going anywhere." She nodded and firmly closed her mouth, but inside she remained perturbed and anxious. The air conditioning in the waiting room felt like it was on full blast. She sat down in the cool leather chair next to a man of approximately her own age. Their eyes met, and he nodded at her in a silent greeting, averting her eyes to the next instance. She continued to stare frankly at him as he remained obliquely aware of her presence. And between them, a series of thought and counterthought began. Interesting, she thought. Clothes like a peasant, style like a king. With her image still burning behind his eyes, he mused. Eyes as blue as cobalt, long, silky hair. She looks like a princess. And the way she holds her head. She walks like a queen. I wouldn't have a chance with her. But a fella can dream, can't he? She continued to stare. After all, his attention seemed otherwise engaged. His thick black hair, with some visible strands of silver, was just long enough to cover the upper portion of his nape, and was combed painstakingly back from his forehead. He was clean-shaven, and his sideburns were straight, as though done by the steady hand of a barber. He seems to take his daily grooming very seriously, she thought. Still, his meticulous care could not deceive her. But he doesn't see his barber regularly, she told herself. Within a few seconds, she had inspected him thoroughly. The wool blend jacket he wore, although hand-picked with good taste and kept well, was old and inexpensive. She could easily surmise that the jacket was the best item in his wardrobe. His cotton blend Oxford shirt, just as old and inexpensive, was also well kept and pressed. The premium haggard trousers he wore, a relatively new pair, were color-coordinated with his shirt and jacket. His old wing-tip shoes were spit-shone. He could not stop thinking about her. "I just have to keep my eyes off her face. I can't be staring at her." He was holding his head down, looking at his knees. He was trying very hard to keep his posture steady and hide his nervousness. He held his hands together, fingers intertwined, one thumb over the other. He had a pensive look. Do I smell Louis Vuitton? And look at her glasses. Look at her shoes. Everything about this woman screams money. If I ever get to see a queen in person, I'd compare her to this woman first. A few minutes later, after she'd been ushered into the doctor's office, leaving him alone once more, the receptionist came up to him to tell him that his doctor could not see him and that his appointment had to be rescheduled. For a second, he felt like responding with disappointment and rage. But that was not his way. Not now, not for a long time. After the years, so many people had slammed the door in his face, and so many opportunities denied him. He had become immune to the pain of no, or at least everyone who knew him well thought that was the case. I'm sorry, Mr. J. I just found out myself. He nodded and interrupted her with a calmly smile. It's okay, sweetheart. I know it's beyond your control. Why don't I call you tomorrow and we'll figure something out? I have a good medical insurance. Yes, Mr. J, I know. Thank you for listening to The Color of Jason's Soul. Please stay tuned for Chapter 2.